Hello, welcome back to my channel. It's been kind of a while since I've posted, and that's just because of end of year things, especially end of senior year things going on, but I'm back. And today's video, I'm actually going to be doing the pro sex work video that I had mentioned, I believe 2 or 3 months ago. This project was an assignment by my school, and what it's called there, what we call it, is our capstone project. And basically, the sum of it is that we were tasked with looking at a certain political issue, like large scale issue, and making a policy brief on it. So yeah, it's mostly going to be me talking over a video of showing you guys the website that already existed but that I've updated to fit with this project. So there's a whole other page within my website for this capstone project. So yeah, I hope you enjoy, and here it is. So for my senior capstone, I obviously decided to do my policy brief on the decriminalization of sex work. So here's my website, which was already up before I had started this project. And here is the capstone tab. So I added frequently asked questions because I think with sex work, a lot of people, including myself actually, prior to having these opinions, have a difficult time actually pinpointing how to solve the massive issues within the sex industry. And they oftentimes have, and I had, a lot of misconceptions about what's actually going on and the real lived experiences of the sex workers who are experiencing these problems at hand. Okay, so for the most frequently asked questions, or I guess otherwise known as the biggest misconceptions that I see people having, are the questions of what does it mean to have sex work be legalized and what does it mean to be decriminalized. Decriminalization is kind of a scary word to a lot of people because, well, it's in the name. It means that there are no criminal penalties for either participating in this industry or purchasing the services provided by it. People think that it would mean that there's no repercussions for any actual crimes going on, that abuse is basically decriminalized within this, and that's simply not true. The difference is that decriminalization refers to the removal of criminal penalties for the buying and selling of sexual acts, as I just said, specifically those categorized as prostitution, between consenting adults. I hope that that's clear with everyone. But legalization means the regulation of the sex trade for consenting adults, but more so the hyperregulation. So depending on the country's specific legalities, both the worker and the client can and do still face unfair repercussions for selling or buying sex, even in cases that do not victimize either party. And in fact, this kind of punishment and the criminal penalties under legalization have in real time only really happened to consenting or however many consenting adults, or to just the sex worker who may be in an abusive situation. So rarely is it ever the offender who is meeting the ends of legalization or getting punished for any kind of victimization of sex workers or of other people. Which isn't exactly a surprise given the legal system that we here in the US live under and that most other countries are under. So why do I advocate for decriminalizing specifically if, as I just explained it and read the definition, it's literally the removal of any criminal penalties? Well, with decriminalization, sex workers receive the same protection and recognition as workers in other industries. Now, some of you might be saying, and I agree with you on this, that what protection in other industries? The idea of industry is based on the inequality of people, and especially between laborers and the bourgeois. More so that I believe in having workers' rights for sex workers as well, because as long as we are under a capitalist system, then we might as well, not even might as well, we have to help the people and the workers that are being abused the most. And not to make it a competition, but I think it's safe to say that sex workers receive the brunt of it. Okay, so on to the next part, or I guess the main part of this project, my policy brief. And the link to this Google Doc, which is embedded in the picture of the front page, as you can see here, is available on my website under the capstone tab. So I will relink my website in the description of this video so you can have an easy way to reach it if you so choose. For my policy brief, I had to collect the data, obviously, on what's going on, but I also needed to look at opposing arguments and arguments for my cause and for my stance. As I mentioned previously, I too was pretty anti-sex work, if I'm being completely honest. So I looked at a lot of anti-sex work feminist arguments in particular. As I was saying, I understand where people are coming from, but at the same time, the framing of it is completely wrong. So when feminists say, I am against sex work, okay, great for you, I guess, but that's not what people are asking. That question, I honestly think, is kind of irrelevant, because whether or not sex work philosophically should even exist or why it exists is mostly weaponized against sex workers, and it's not on par with what feminists claim to be fighting for. What feminists like, say, Andrea Dworkin, anti-sex feminist, I would say, from the 70s, what she was doing was fighting an ideological war. She wasn't looking at what was actually going on the real battlegrounds, if you will. And what's going on is that because sex work is so stigmatized, sex workers feel less inclined to report abuse, and they will experience it more often because of it. To give an example of this happening, SESTA or FOSTA, which were acts under President Trump that made it so that services like Redbook, for example, which was an app that allowed sex workers to post screenings of certain clients, in particular dangerous clientele. Beyond SESTA or FOSTA or any kind of legalities within the US, in Nordic countries who adopt the end demand ideology, I just want to add that end demand is the philosophy that you can destroy a market for sex or the markets for sex by cracking down on it through the carceral state, in basic terms. But anyways, many Nordic countries like Sweden, Norway, or Finland, for example, make it so that it is illegal to quote-unquote congregate with other sex workers, so they can't really work with each other, be seen with each other, or else they will be considered as brothel keeping. And that is illegal basically everywhere. Even if there is no pimp involved, you can still, as a sex worker, be prosecuted for brothel keeping, even if you are just, say, like I was mentioning with the apps like Redbook, looking out for another sex worker. So it's very dangerous to have these kinds of acts in play. So I want to end this video with what I think is a very fitting quote from the Combahee River Collective. In the practice of our politics, we do not believe that the end always justifies the means. Many reactionary and destructive acts have been done in the name of achieving correct political goals. As feminists, we do not want to mess over people in the name of politics. I understand and strongly agree with any notion of not wanting to commodify any human experience. I also know how it feels to know and read about all of this abuse going on and being encouraged systemically. I understand how jarring and distressing that can be. I understand, believe me, I do, wanting to use the carceral state to get back at our oppressors. But I want to ask, why should we trust the carceral state in the first place if all it has done is fail us? It was made to disenfranchise certain groups of people. So I say we ditch that system altogether instead of putting so much faith into it. So there is my capstone project. I hope that you feel enlightened by this, and I really do recommend looking at my full policy brief if you'd like to. You don't have to read the whole thing, obviously, it's on your own terms, but there's a lot more in-depth research there, which I think would take a several-hour video to read and explain. Well, I will leave you with that. See you next time.